Alright, here is a new video concerning a great saint of the past, a great Christian of the past. And I already did a video on Calvin. I'll put a link in the description below to that video. I'll make a series out of this once in a while. I'll give you a video concerning a certain great Christian of the past. And today I want to talk about Augustine, specifically the Confessions of Augustine. And let me first of all mention his conversion story, which he also speaks about in the book. You would expect a conversion on a rational basis, logical basis, after studying and reasoning. However, he's converted by a very powerful encounter with God. He just reads a random Bible verse, and it's almost as if God hits him with lightning. I think it's a verse from the book of Romans, if I'm correct. And, well, after that his mother dies, who had been praying for him for many years, for him to convert. Now it happens, and she dies. He's sad about it, but nevertheless his life is completely changed. He's now really devoted himself to God. A very powerful conversion story. And we're going to look, the Confessions of Augustine, the first 9 books are biography, and the remaining books are philosophy. And we want to look at specifically book 10 and 11. But I want to start with something I read in the second book, the Confessions. And I'm reading from my notes here, good things without God become bad things. And he gives a few examples on that. Generosity becomes waste. Rest becomes laziness. Simplicity becomes ignorance. Innocence becomes stupidity. And it's true. In our world I'm speaking about our Western world, we have an invasion of Asian spirituality. Think of Buddha statues in every house, or many houses. People all do yoga. People all speak about living in the now. People all speak about finding the inner God, remembering God, being united with the divine and that kind of stuff, which is all drawn from Asian religions. But Augustine says everything good without God is actually bad. That's a radical message, I know, but I think it's true. If you adopt certain spiritual things that on the surface might seem to be good, they're actually bad, because there is a gap there, and someone will step in, and that someone in this spiritual situation is Satan. He will step in. It's a radical message, but it's something that Augustine also seems to support in the Confessions. Something good without God is actually bad. So we're making a huge step from book 2 to book 10 now. Augustine wants to find God, which is absolutely astonishing, beautiful, and etc. So how can we find God? Now, the usual answer in Christian circles would be go to church, read your Bible, pray together, sing songs of worship together, share testimony. Well, the typical stuff that Christians do in order to find God. But Augustine is a smart guy, so he takes a step back and he says, how can I know something at all? What does it mean to know something? And then he starts speaking about 2 things, and he says, all we can know, doesn't matter what it is two things. Things that we encounter with our senses: seeing, smelling, tasting, hearing, touching. Okay, so we encounter stuff in time and matter and with the memory. That's all there is. You can't encounter anything outside that. He includes the abstract things, such think of math. Math is not something that you can encounter with your senses. It's abstract, but at the same time, you need the senses to understand it. So even that is still in the realm of senses, so to speak. So now back to God. God exists outside of our senses. He's not part of matter and space. Therefore, Augustine says, we cannot know God, because all we can encounter is with the senses. And God is not, it's not possible to encounter God in that specific way. Let me give you an example with keys. I can encounter these keys with my senses. Think of looking at them, touching them, tasting them, which I'm not going to do, hearing them. You can hear them now. I can encounter these keys, and when I lose my keys, hypothetically, I can still know them because they're still in my memory. And there I can still, with my senses, because I can still, even if I close my eyes, I can still see them, I can still hear them with my ears, even though I'm not really hearing them, because they're somewhere in my memory. God cannot be encountered with the senses, yet we're searching for God. We want to encounter God. Therefore, we must know him. That is the good news. He's saying if you search for God, it's proof that you already know God. So in a sense, you've already found him as soon as you start searching for him, which is good news. But how is that possible? There's a paradox here. I've already said God cannot be encountered with the senses and therefore not with the memory, yet we know of the existence of God and we are searching for him. How does that work? First of all, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. Secondly, God has engrafted into our being a desire for joy and happiness. And Augustine says joy and happiness can only be found with God, and therefore we search for God because we want that joy and happiness. It's the full joy, the full fulfillment that we find there where God is. In fact, he goes as far as to say that all other forms of joy and happiness will not lead to actual joy and happiness. That's why I quoted from or mentioned the second book here. Didn't quote from it, by the way, but mentioned the second book of the Confessions here, where it says that good things without God aren't good, are actually bad. So if you're trying to find joy and happiness outside of God, you are not going to find joy and happiness, because joy and happiness without God aren't joy and happiness. On the surface, it might make you happy and joyful, but ultimately it's a path towards destruction. And this is again, very radical message. All right, we're turning to the 11th book now, a book in which Augustine is confronted with a question, and it's concerning Genesis chapter 1. Where was God before time? And underneath that question is the criticism: you don't believe that creation is part of God. Because even in that time, there's nothing new under the sun, really. People believed that creation and God were one and the same thing. They said to him, time cannot have a beginning and an end, has to be eternal. So if there is a God, creation must be part of God, because creation and God are both simultaneously eternal, and therefore they're the same thing. And that is something that you will hear today too. I already spoke about the Asian spirituality, and that's pretty much the same thing. Think of the ocean. In this whole Asian philosophy, you have the idea that as a human being, you're only a drop of the ocean, and you need to be reunited with the sea. For example, in Hinduism, this is a chain of reincarnation, and you can earn your reunification with the ocean, with the cosmos, with the eternal reality, whatever. And Augustine, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, was confronted with that same uh, line of thinking, and he confronted that. So it's very timeless. A timeless thing, the difference between pantheism, because this is really what pantheism is, and the dualism, where time, matter, and space are, well, completely separate from God. Okay, so Augustine again takes a step back. So he says, wait a minute, what exactly is time? Before I'm going to answer the question, where was God before time? Because that is really the question put upon, which is put up on his plate, so to speak. Where was God before time, if time is eternal, etc.? And he says, first we need to define time. What is time? And he is going to explain in his book, or in the 11th book of the Confessions, that time does not exist, so that the problem does not exist. And you might think, wait a minute, how is that possible? And that's what I'm going to explain to you right now. And I hope I'm doing this. I'm going to do a simplified version. Obviously, it's also my own interpretation. So I hope you think it's accurate if you know the book. And if you don't, I hope you like the theory, because it's amazing. I'm going to show you a timeline of 1 second. 1, 2. You see it here in your screen right now. Okay? So, first of all, we need to speak about the past. And Augustine says the past does not exist. We need to speak about the future. And he says the future does not exist. The past is something that has already gone, so it does no longer exist. And the future does not yet exist. In fact, we don't even know the future. It's only an expectation of what might happen. So it does not exist. So all that exists is the present. You're looking at it right now, that 1 second. And here is where we still are in line with all the Asian spirituality, living in the now, making the most of every day, and all that stuff. Putting a Buddha statue in your house, doing yoga, living in the now, the present is all there is. Here we still find each other, the Asian spirituality and the, let's say, Christian spirituality, because that's what Augustine is representing here. But now is the conclusion of Augustine: the present also doesn't exist. And I'm going to show you this little experiment right now. If I say 1, 2, that's about 1 second, it's still time, as in past and future. If I say one, I have not yet said two. So the moment that I'm saying one, the moment that I'm going to say two is still future. The moment that I say two, one is already the past. One, two. One, two. So the moment that I do this, one is already past, two is still future. So 1 second, the one you're seeing here right now, isn't the present. It is past and future. And we've already concluded that the past does not exist, the future does not exist. So let's just say, well, wait a minute, 1 second, that's still quite a long time. Let's split it into two. So now you've got 1, 1.5, 2. So here we've got half a second. It's the same problem, really. 1, 1.5. When I say 1, the moment that I say 1.5 is still future. When I say 1.5, 1 is already the past. And we could continue to split that up and up and up, but the problem would remain, and therefore we can conclude that the present does not exist. The past does not exist, the present does not exist, and the future does not exist. Conclusion, nothing exists. Yet here we are, right? Time does not exist. Therefore, the question, where was God before time, is an invalid question. And it's abstract. I mean, it's true. There's no argument against this theory. It's just, you can't really ignore that this is true. It feels as if something is wrong with the theory, because we talk about yesterday, we talk about today, we talk about tomorrow. However, right now does not exist. Even the moment that I said right now is already in the past. And if I do this, it's already past. I'm going to do it 2 seconds from now. 1, 2. But now it's already the past. Now it's already the past. It's kind of a paradoxical thing to say. You get the point, right? It's past does not exist, future does not exist, and the present doesn't exist. Yet we exist. We exist, time does not exist. So the idea that God was before time is technically an invalid argument. So the question, where was God before time, is irrelevant. And you say we've got time. I'm looking at a clock, but a clock obviously does not represent time. It represents an agreement that people made on how to plan stuff. Same with the sun. The sun comes up in the morning and goes down in the evening. But what if it wouldn't burn anymore? Would that take away time? No. Just would be the end of the sun. Nothing would have technically changed. So the reason I'm telling you all this is because these are the key philosophies, the key thoughts of the Confessions of Augustine, and truly love it. And Augustine is a very important figure, not only in Christian theology and philosophy, but also in Western philosophy in general. So it's worth mentioning these things. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to my channel to get updates on videos of other great Christians that have lived in the past. Have a very great day.